First, I must give the yeshiva's thanks to Daniel Seif. But without him, we wouldn't be able to have these shiurim. And he's here with me, listening in, making sure I don't make any mistakes, and taking care of all the equipment. Really, a great yeshker for Daniel. Thank you. We're looking at a Gemara over here on Yud Aleph on the days, and the Gemara says as follows. Amr Abirmi bar Abba, Ein Taanis Tzibur b'Bovel elo Tisha B'Av b'Avad. There's no Taanis Tzibur in Bovel excepting Tisha B'Av b'Avad. Rashi says on that, Ein Taanis Tzibur b'Bovel elo Tisha B'Av b'Avad. Rashi doesn't say anything about it. So the Gemara just speaks for itself. First of all, what does it mean, Ein Taanis Tzibur b'Bovel elo Tisha B'Av b'Avad? There's only Tisha B'Av b'Avad. Taanis Tzibur in halacha means a taanis which it starts already the whole day. It's not just a taanis like we do from the morning to the what's his name, from the morning to the evening. Taanis Tzibur means a taanis of a whole day, 24 hours. And then every Taanis Tzibur that we have, what's called a Taanis Tzibur, requires the 5 inuyim. Not only achila and shtiyas also, but the halach is ne'ilas hasanda. One is not allowed to wear shoes. One is not allowed to take a bath. Tashmish hamita, to be with one's wife, is not permitted. Sicha, putting oil on your body, is also just like Yom Kippur and just like Tisha B'Av. So the only Taanis Tzibur we have in Bovel is what? Is Tisha B'Av. Just Tisha B'Av. This is what the Gemara says. I'm Rabbi Yirmiyah, the only Taanis Tzibur. I just want to speak a little bit about this inyan of the Taanis Tzibur. Again, Taanis Tzibur is not the Taanesim that we do all year around. Those Taanesim are Taanesim of basically half a day. Taanis Tzibur means all 5 inuyim, just like Yom Kippur and just like Tisha B'Av. And that Taanis Tzibur is only that, the only Taanis Tzibur that we have like that in Bovel is Tisha B'Av. We have Yom Kippur, but that's Minatera. We're not speaking Minatera. The Taanis Tzibur that we're speaking about is the Taanis Tzibur that a person, that Mitzad Bezin. So Rashi Shita is, Rashi basically Tesis learned that Ein Taanis Tzibur Bovel Tisha B'Av b'Avad. Here's the Gemara. I'm looking for the Rashi before. Excuse me. Taanis Tzibur Bovel le'inyan isuri chumrei atainis. Rashi's a little bit further down, not on top. Legabi chumrei atainis. Amr Abirmi lemilsa sheyanogim bo ke'en avelis she'ochli mebojom. It's also one has to start the taanis before the actual time, like on Tisha B'Av. We don't wait till Shkia, we wait a little bit before Shkia. We have all the chumei noagim bo kinyan avelis shoyu ochli mebojom v'asur b'nilas hasan. There were also in shoes v'chulu el Taanis Tisha B'Av. Only Taanis Tzibur b'Av. What's the reason that the only taanis that we have is Tisha B'Av? So the Rashi Shita and Taisus and Psachim, the basic comment is because the other Taanesim that we're speaking about in the Gemara over here in Taanis, and those are Taanis Tziburs, those Taanesim are based on lack of rain. A person has a lack of rain, the halachas, we have to do a Taanis Tzibur, we have to do tshuva, we have to do a Taanis Tzibur. There's a Sidrei Taanesim, there's a whole order how it's done. Some people already start, the tzaddikim already start from the beginning of Kislev, and then the Higi Yudzai b'mecheshen v'lo yorduk shomim, Yudzai b'mecheshen, the rain hasn't said, his schilo ha-yechidim misanim, the yechidim begin to fast, Gimel Taanesim. And then it continues, and he gives Shchedesh Kislev has come. V'lo yorduk shomim, rain hasn't come yet. Bezin goes in Gimel Taanesim al Tzibur, then Bezin goes in Taanesim al Tzibur. Ochim v'shosim v'shachashecha. Umotor b'malacha, they're allowed malacha, mechitza, v'sichlim, v'sasano, v'tashamita, and then further on. If that doesn't work, then we go to more extreme measures. So the Taanis Tzibur that we're referring to is the Taanis Tzibur for Kshamim. And being that Bovel, there was no lack of rain in Bovel, so if there's no lack of rain in Bovel, there was a Taanis Tzibur Bovel, there was no Taanis Tzibur. The only Taanis Tzibur they had in Bovel was Tisha B'Av. But the Taanesim, for lack of rain, was not required in Bavel, because Bavel did not lack rain, or they had rivers, or they had other things, so they did not lack rain. The Ramban asks on this, what about other areas? We know there are areas in the world which are parched, that don't have rain, and they don't have rivers. What are we going to do with them? Why don't they have a Taanis Sibur? So, okay, Bavel doesn't have. Oh, but what about other places? And then he asks another question. There's other reasons for Taanesim as well. If we're attacked, or if there's a dever, there's a plague, we also have to make a Taanis Sibur. So that's a good reason. Bavel doesn't have a lack of rain, so Bavel not having a lack of rain doesn't have a, but it could be enemies attacking, could be there is a what's his name, there's a plague involved. We also have to declare a Taanis Sibur. So why don't we have a Taanis Sibur for that? So the Meiri writes as follows. The Meiri answers both of these questions. He says, first of all, in the time of Chazal, the two main areas were Eretz Yisrael and Bavel. Those were the two main areas of civilization as far as Yidden were concerned. Good, it could be, there were Indians in America, but that was not civilization as far as we're concerned. So we're concerned about two areas, Eretz Yisrael and Bavel. Those were always the two areas which comprised most of the Jewish life at that time. So whenever Chazal made takonas, they made takonas in mind for Eretz Yisrael and Bavel. So when they made these takonas, or a Taanis Sibur, for lack of rain, they were koveid for Bavel, because Bavel was really the center of civilization after Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so even though there are maybe areas which there is a scarcity of water and a scarcity of rain, and because of that we should have made a Taanis Sibur, but Chazal, when they made this whole inyan of a Taanis Sibur, they made it only for Bavel. And again, the Iker Taanesim, which Chazal were masaking, the whole Sidrei Taanesim, the whole Seder of the Taanesim, was for rain. Other things are like private. God forbid if there's a plague or there's enemy, but those are unusual occurrences. But the general reason for making Taanesim was for lack of rain. And Bavel did not lack rain, even though some areas did have a lack of rain. But that was not a reason to be masakin a special takana for them, because we go after the main civilization, areas of civilization for Yidden, and those were Eretz Yisrael and Bavel. That's what the Meiri says. The Rambam says a different teretz. And the Rambam gives a very simple teretz. He says it's true. The reason Chazal, there are areas which don't have rain, but the reason Chazal were not gozer a Taanis, a Taanesim for those other areas except for Tisha B'Av, he says, because in Eretz Yisrael has the best of the best. It's the best. It's the best area to live in. The air is the cleanest air, and it's not too hot, not too cold. So if you remember, the Taanis Sibur means you have to take off your shoes, or you have to wear rubber. You weren't always able to have a rubber type of a sole. So it means you walk without shoes. You're going to walk over there in an area like Bavel where it's hot. You burn your feet. You're going to burn your feet. Or you're going to have a Taanis Sibur someplace in the Antarctic when you're going to freeze your feet. Chazal didn't want to. That was what Chazal's inyan was. Eretz Yisrael has good air, and a person can be strong enough to be soivel the Taanesim. Okay, Tisha B'Av is Tisha B'Av. Yom Kippur is Yom Kippur. We understand it. But to make undue pressure on other areas of the world, which is too hard for people to be makabel, Chazal did not want to do. So they only selected Bavel and Ein Taanis Sibur, even for Bavel, which was an area of general population of the Jews, but Afal became Ein Taanis Sibur, but Bavel Ella only Tisha B'Av, and Tisha B'Av because of the destruction of the temple. So in the destruction of the temple, one has to suffer a little bit more. Otherwise, they didn't want to be gezer of the Taanesim, even though could be that there is reasons to be go. But Chazal were only gozer Taanesim when the Tzibur can hold it, can be cycled, can manage to fast, and yet and yet be able to not to be injured by the fasting. This is what this thing says. The Ramban says a novel town, and this is what I want to speak on a little bit, and I want to be marach a little bit, because it's a very important yesod. The Ramban says, Ein Taanis Tzibur b'Bava elo Tisha B'Av. And he says, the Taanis Tzibur, that means a Taanis for rain, for plague, for enemy coming, the conquering. That has to be declared by the Nasi. Can't be done on our own. We don't make Taanis Tzibur. You know, sometimes they have these things, prayer, common prayer. Taanis Tzibur, again, Taanis Tzibur is a special type of a Taanis. Taanis Tzibur means not only fasting, but fasting a 24-hour period, a day, a 24-hour period. It means starting, you have to be mafsik to eat before the Taanis, just like we do before Yom Kippur, before Tisha B'Av. And it also means you can't wear shoes, and you can't be with one's wife, and you can't have sicha, you can't have ointment, you can't take a shower. All those are the chamisha inuyim. Taanis Tzibur can only be declared by the Nasi of the Sanhedrin. And there's no Sanhedrin in Bavel. There was no Sanhedrin, there was no Nasi in Bavel. That means the Nasi of the Sanhedrin, whoever the Nasi was, whether it was a Yehuda Nasi or in the other Nasi of Gamliel, they were the Nasim. Those Nasim were the only ones who could declare, the Nasi or the Sanhedrin could declare a Taanis in Eretz Yisrael. So in Eretz Yisrael, once, it's not just they get together, make a few phone calls, and they make a Taanis. That's not the way it was. A Taanis Tzibur, that concept of Taanis Tzibur can only be done by the Sanhedrin, Hagadol in Eretz Yisrael, through the Nasi, and that's it. There was no Nasi in Chutz La'aretz. There was no Sanhedrin in Chutz La'aretz. So about there's no Sanhedrin, there's no Nasi in Chutz La'aretz. We can't declare any Taanis. We can't declare. So there's nothing in Bavel. There's nothing in Bavel. There's nothing in America. There's nothing in London. There's nothing. Ain't Taanis Tzibur Bavel. Except Tisha B'Av, which was established already. Rashi, that's one of the Nekulas Rashi says over here, if you look in Rashi again, in Taanis Tzibur Bavel, L'inyan Isuri Chumei Taanis Arav Yer L'Milsa Sheyanogabo Ke'ein Avelis. Because the inyan of Tisha B'Av was also an inyan of Avelis. So in the inyan of Avelis, they established, when the Beis Din in Eretz Yisrael established a worldwide Taanis Tzibur when it came to Tisha B'Av. Or the Avelis, the loss of the Beis HaMikdash, the loss of all the Torah that one was involved in the loss of the Beis HaMikdash. They when they made their takana, they made a worldwide takana. Okay, so that was on Tisha B'Av. We know Tisha B'Av was Tisha B'Av, comes with Shchei Shab, Tisha B'Av, so we know Tisha B'Av. But when we're having Taanis for lack of rain, again, you must remember, gentlemen, it's not that they had phones or they had communication right away, instant communication. So that means they would always have to ask the Beis Din in Eretz Yisrael permission to make a Taanis Tzibur. So that didn't go. Tisha B'Av was already known. It was a day. It was a kavua day. It was a set day. Every year Tisha B'Av occurs on Tes B'Av, excepting on days when it falls on Shabbos, and then we know it's Nidcha to Sunday. Same thing as Yom Kippur. Everyone knows Yom Kippur. We know these days. This falls out every year is the same thing. We don't have to have contact and call up the Sanhedrin and Eretz Yisrael. So should we fast on Tisha B'Av? Shouldn't we? No. Tisha B'Av is Tisha B'Av. That's the Taanis Tzibur we have. That's the Taanis Tzibur we have. So the halacha is we don't, what's his name? We don't have any other Taanis. Because to declare another Taanis, we need the haskama of the Beis Din in Eretz Yisrael. And without the Beis Din and the Nasi in Eretz Yisrael, we can't declare a Taanis. So there was no communication at that time. Now we have communication. We go after what Chazal said. We're very, very conservative. Chazal gave this formula and said, Ein Taanis Tzibur B'Av. Now we do have communication. Now we have email and we have all types of other things. That's not what we have. We have to call up Eretz Yisrael. We have to tell them all the circumstances. They have to see the picture, and then afterwards they have to call in the basin and discuss, should we make a Taanis Tzibur in Ecuador? Should we make a Taanis Tzibur in Bavel, in Iraq? Should we make a Taanis Tzibur or not? They have to have any Taanis Tzibur Bavel. In Eretz Yisrael, basin is sitting in Eretz Yisrael, they know the circumstances. They declare the Taanis, so everyone is kafaf to the Sanhedrin in Eretz Yisrael, but not in anything else. This is what the Ramban says. Frek the Meromi saw that wonderful kasha. Okay, very good, beautiful, beautiful. But the Gemara is speaking about times even after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. I mean, the Gemara Taanis is not just referring to a situation before the Beis Hamikdash. After the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, there was no acting Sanhedrin. Okay, there was acting Sanhedrin, but for a period of time, not for a long period of time. What are you going to do then? What are you going to do then? So the Gemara says a Taanis Tzibur b'Bavel, and according to the Ramban, that means because we're lacking a Nasi and we're lacking a Sanhedrin. But the Gemara should have said a Taanis Tzibur b'Bavel, then even when you had a Sanhedrin, and a Taanis Tzibur b'Eretz Yisrael, even nowadays, because we don't have a Sanhedrin. If we don't have a Sanhedrin, we don't have a Nasi, which we don't have, so how can we have a Taanis Tzibur? And the Mishnah says, speaking in general, anytime we have a situation when there's a Taanis, so the halacha is, we're mechuyev to, if there are circumstances which warrant a Taanis, we're mechuyev to do a Taanis. A basin can be kover, but ain't Taanis Tzibur b'Bavel, what's going on? If ain't Taanis Tzibur b'Bavel because of the lack of the Nasi and the lack of the Sanhedrin, so we should have the same problem nowadays in Eretz Yisrael. Nowadays doesn't mean in 2010. Nowadays meant even 1,000 years ago, even 1,500 years ago, even when the time of the Gaonim, and the time of the Sabaroim, and even the time of Amoraim and Abai and Rava, and the time of Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. We didn't have a Sanhedrin then. We had great scholars, we had great Amoraim, but we didn't have a Sanhedrin. So why should there be a Taanis Tzibur in the time of Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish? And from the Gemara's Masha, that they did have Taanis Tzibur, they did fast. So the Kashas are very, according to Ramban, according to the other Rishonim, that they never made a Taanis Tzibur b'Bavel because either the weather didn't permit, or the ground was not acclimated for making a Taanis Tzibur, or there was plenty of rain, and Bavel was the center of it. So we understand it. But according to the Ramban, the Ramban presents the answer as a Taanis Tzibur b'Bavel because you're lacking a Sanhedrin and a Nasi. If that's the qualification, what is going to be with the Eretz Yisrael Bisman from Amoraim and forward after the door of what? After, I guess, the Rav was one of the last Tanoim, Rav Tanahu Apollo, Rav was one of the last Tanoim. So after the door of Rav, so how did they make a what's his name? How did they make it? This is a tremendous question. So the Meromi Sada wants to answer, yes, but you really don't need a Nasi for rain. For Geshomim, you don't need a Nasi in Sanhedrin for rain. That's what he wants to say. Okay, which is a little chiddush. I mean, it's Masha from the Ramban, not like that. I want to give a pilpul, but it's a big yisai. It's a big yisai. The Rambam asks a question. The Rambam says, how can we have Hoshiva Shofteinu Rishon B'Yotzeinu K'Batchila? How can we make a Sanhedrin? And this bracha is even before the bracha as Samach David Avdecha. As Samach David Avdecha is referring to B'Yas Mashiach Tzidkinu. And yet we say Hoshiva Shofteinu Rishon B'Yotzeinu should return our Shoftim. Give us the Sanhedrin, and we'll get happy back to Shoftim. But how can we have that? How can we have that situation? We can't have that situation nowadays, because we don't have a Sanhedrin. It's been broken. That chain to make a Sanhedrin has been broken. We need a smicha. Moshe from Ishmi Biyish to Moshe Rabbeinu. We don't have that anymore. So Rambam asks a beautiful question: how can we have a Shiva Shavtei Rishon B'Yotzeinu K'Batchila? It's like the Rambam. It's a mistake. The Rambam has a very big chiddush. And the Rambam says that Yochas Sanhedrin. Rambam says in Hilchos Hanen, if all the Chachmei Yisrael get together, all the Chachmei Yisrael get together, and they agree to give smicha, to reinstitute the smicha, Rambam says in Hilchos Hanen, so the smicha can be reinstituted. And the Rambam says they can start giving smicha, because smicha can only be in Eretz Yisrael, and they can start giving smicha, making the bati dinner, and making the sanhedrin. That's what the Rambam says. But Simcha says that's why, according to the Rambam, if that could, theoretically, the Rambam says the only ones who could be Makadish the Chodesh, the only ones who could be Makadish the Chodesh, period, is the Chachmei, the Sanhedrin in Eretz Yisrael. So, all the Rishonim ask out the Rambam, where are the Chachomim in Eretz Yisrael? We don't have them. Since the Churban HaBayis, we don't have Chachomim, we don't have the Smich in Eretz Yisrael. We don't have it. We don't have a Sanhedrin, we don't have a Beis Din Kavua in Eretz Yisrael. So the Mer Simcha says, because the Jews in Eretz Yisrael all together come about and they become like a Sanhedrin. Being that they have a koach of giving smicha, they have a power of giving smicha, so they themselves have a din Sanhedrin. As he said to Rambam. So the Hashiva Shavtecha Kurishana V'Yatzenik V'Achil, the Rambam says very portion. If the Chachmei Yisrael want to get together, and the Rambam says, this is not an easy thing. Rambam himself says, this is not an easy thing. That all the Chachomim should get together and agree, but theoretically it's possible. So if all the Chachomim get together and agree, and they decide to give smicha to one person, that person becomes a samach and he can restart. This was a very, very big machlokes in the time of the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef's Rebbe was the Maribe Rav, and he decided he wanted to bring the Mashiach that much quicker. And in order to bring the Mashiach, he wanted to start the Sanhedrin. And to have the Sanhedrin, then we could give Onshin, we could give Malchus, we could give all these, and the Beis Din would be ruling over Klal Yisrael. He wanted to start, and all the Chachmei Yisrael in Tzvas gave him smicha. So and then he began to give smicha to what's his name, to his Talmidim, the Beis Yosef, he gave smicha. And this was a whole machlokes because some of the Goyim were there at the three times. So you have to have all the Chachmei Yisrael, and he only had the Chachmei Yisrael in Tzvas. And what about the Chachmei Yisrael in Yerushalayim? Were overlooked. So it was a whole big machlokes. But this smicha lasted about 200 to 300 years after the Rebbe Rav. Sometimes you see on the title pages of the big Svarah Shagayim Hasamach, because they carried on the smicha for a couple hundred years. But the Rambam says it's theoretically possible, and the Mir Simcha says, being that they have the possibility of giving smicha, so Mamela, the Klal Yisrael has a din of a samach. And that's why the Meforshim say, whenever time, we get together on, I think it's already next week, we're going to make a Kiddush HaChodesh, and next week or 2 weeks, we're going to make a Kiddush HaChodesh on Shabbos beforehand. And Chaverim Kol Yisrael, we take out the Sefer Torah, and the person announces when the Meilah will be, and that announcement is Koveya, when the Meilah is. That, according to the Rambam, has only effect in Eretz Yisrael. Once it's been established in Eretz Yisrael, so all. And what do we gather all that? What do we do by that? Chaverim Kol Yisrael, because the Torah connects us all. So the Torah connects us all. So it's like everyone is agreed. Every shul in Eretz Yisrael is taking out their Sefer Torah, and together we're announcing when the Mother will be. So this is Koveya, when the next Chodesh will be. And this makes up a Sanhedrin. This is itself like the Sanhedrin would have convened the day when the new month will be. So if that's the case, it's very simple. The Ramban is 100% right. Ramban says it depends upon the Nasi in Eretz Yisrael. Rami sort of says, okay, when the Nasi and the Sanhedrin were active in Eretz Yisrael, I understand it. But nowadays we don't have a Nasi. All the Gemaras and all the Mishnayos are speaking even in situations after the Sanhedrin. The Teretz is Klal Yisrael has always a din of a Nasi. So Klal Yisrael sees there's a lack of rain, and the basin, whatever, any established basin in Eretz Yisrael tells the people that we should fast now because there's a lack of rain, and because of lack of rain we're mispalled to remain Yisrael. So that basin, and the people trust that basin, The people don't trust the base, they don't trust the base, obviously. But the people trust the base and are willing to follow, so that becomes like a Nasi and a Sanhedrin in Eretz Yisrael. And it has a tokef of one, of that halacha is only in Eretz Yisrael. It does not apply to America, it does not apply to the Moatzas Gedolia Torah of America, it does not apply to the Moatzas Gedolia Torah of Canada, it only applies to the Moatzas Gedolia Torah of Eretz Yisrael. The Moatzas Gedolia Torah of Eretz Yisrael decide that whether it should be Sanhedrin, and the people follow the Moatzas Gedolia Torah, so it's like the Sanhedrin would have be B'tokef, and the Nasi, the Sanhedrin is B'tokef, and everyone now is mechuyev to have that day as a Taanis Tzibur. So the Gemara and the question of the Rami Sada is answered in a beautiful way according to the Shita of Ban and using the Shitas of the